I need you to listen to me. Please don't look away. Because if you turn your eyes even for a second, you might miss the part where everything breaks. I am 72 years old. And today I packed my bags in silence. Not because I wanted to leave. No. I packed them because the house I bled for decided it no longer needed me. I didn't cry when I folded my clothes. That part came later. I didn't scream either. Screaming scares people. Silence doesn't. Silence makes them uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed that? The zipper of my old suitcase sounded louder than it should have. Like it was accusing me. Like it was asking why now. I paused. My hands were shaking. Not from age. Don't let anyone tell you that lie. But from something colder. Something heavier. Fear. The house was too quiet. No television. No footsteps. No laughter. Just the clock. Tick, tick, tick. Like it was counting how much time I had left. This morning my son didn't look at me when he spoke. He stood near the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the wall behind my head. That's how people talk when they don't want to feel guilty. Mom, we think it's best, he said. Best for who? He didn't answer. He never does. My daughter-in-law sat at the table scrolling on her phone. Her nails were freshly painted. A soft pink. I remember paying for that manicure last week. She sighed, annoyed, like I was a bill she forgot to pay. You're not useful anymore, she said. She laughed after like it was a joke. No one else laughed. I stood there holding a mug of tea that had already gone cold. My hands didn't drop it. I wish they had. At least then the sound would have proven I still existed. Instead I nodded. Because old women learn early, if you nod, people finish faster. They talked about space. About privacy. About starting fresh. They talk like I was furniture. Something heavy. Something outdated. No one mentioned the nights I stayed awake rocking their babies. No one mentioned the meals cooked while my knees burned. No one mentioned the money quietly handed over when bills arrived like threats. No one mentioned love. So I packed. Upstairs, the hallway light flickered like it always does. I asked them to fix it 3 years ago. They never did. My room smelled like dust and lavender. The same scent I've used since I was 30. Since my husband was alive. I opened the drawer where I keep old photographs. Black and white ones. Smiles that didn't know what was coming. There's one photo I almost packed. Almost. I put it back when I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow. Careful. Listening. I held my breath. Someone was there. Not knocking. Not entering. Just standing. I whispered, "Hello." No answer. The footsteps moved away. That was when I knew, this wasn't just about me leaving. Something else was happening in this house. Something they didn't want me to see. I zipped the suitcase shut and sat on the bed. The mattress groaned under my weight like it was tired too. I touched the crack in the wall near the window. That crack appeared the night my husband died. I swear it did. Like the house felt it before I did. Do you believe houses remember things? Because I do. As I walked downstairs, I noticed the door to the old storage room was locked. It's never locked. Not once in 20 years. A cold shiver climbed up my spine. I asked my son about it. He said, "You don't need to worry about that anymore." That word again. Need. Tell me something. When did need become the measure of love? Let me ask you this. And I want you to answer me honestly in the comments because I'm reading every single one. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by the very people you sacrificed everything for? And if my story is touching something inside you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you next, most families' prey never comes to light. They walked me to the door like strangers escorting a guest. No hugs. No call me when you arrive. Just the sound of keys. Already eager to replace me. I stepped outside. The air was cold. Rain threatened but never fell. The sky was the color of old bruises. I stood on the porch longer than I should have, waiting for someone to stop me. No one did. As I reached the gate, I heard it. A whisper. Not outside. Inside the house. My name. Soft. Urgent. I turned back. Every window was dark, except one. The storage room. A light flickered behind the curtain. And for the first time all day I smiled. Because if they thought I was leaving without answers, They forgot who taught them how to keep secrets in the first place. I didn't tell them goodbye. I pulled my coat tighter around my shoulders and stepped back through the gate, my suitcase wheels bumping softly against the cracked pavement. Each sound felt dangerous now, like the house itself was listening. The whisper of my name still echoed inside my ears, thin and trembling, the way a candle flame shakes before it dies. I walked down the street slowly, then turned the corner and stopped. My heart was beating too fast for a woman my age, but fear has its own strength. I waited there, hidden behind the old oak tree my husband planted the year our son was born. The bark was rough against my palm, familiar, steady. The front door opened. Light spilled out. Shadows moved. They thought I was gone. I watched my son step outside, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, urgent. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw his face. Tight jaw. Eyes darting toward the street. Toward my empty porch. He went back inside quickly. That was when I knew. I wasn't being sent away for my comfort. I was being removed. I waited 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Time stretches when you're afraid. Then I went back. The door wasn't locked. That hurt more than it should have. Inside, the house felt different. Colder. Like it was holding its breath. I slipped off my shoes the way I always did, even when no one noticed. The clock was still ticking. Louder now. Tick, tick, tick. The storage room door was still locked. I stood in front of it, my fingers hovering over the knob. The metal was cold. I pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing. No voices. No movement. Just silence. I should have left. I know that now. But curiosity is louder than fear when you've already lost everything. I went upstairs. Their bedroom door was half open. My daughter-in-law's perfume drifted into the hallway, sharp, expensive, unfamiliar. On the dresser, I saw something that didn't belong. An old leather notebook. My heart dropped into my stomach. I knew that notebook. I kept it hidden for years. Behind the loose board under the stairs. A diary. Not of feelings, no, but of truths. Dates. Names. Things whispered when they thought I was asleep. Things I never confronted because confronting breaks families. Or so I believed. My hand shook as I picked it up. The leather was worn. Scratched. Familiar as my own skin. Why was it here? I flipped it open. Several pages were gone. Torn out. That was when I heard footsteps again. Fast this time. I barely had time to slide the diary under my coat before my son appeared in the doorway. "Mom," he said. His eyes widened when he saw me. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, choking. I could see the lie forming on his lips before he spoke it. "I thought you left." "I forgot something," I said softly. My voice surprised even me. Calm. Steady. Dangerous. He swallowed. "You shouldn't be here." Shouldn't. Another word people use when they're afraid. I looked past him down the hallway. "What's in the storage room?" His face changed. Just for a moment. A flicker of panic. Then anger. "That's none of your concern. It used to be my house. It used to be my concern." I smiled. "Everything in this house is my concern." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. Instead I asked, "When were you going to tell me?" He didn't ask what. Because he knew. We stood there, mother and son, strangers wearing familiar faces. Finally he stepped aside. "Just don't touch anything," he said. I walked past him. The storage room smelled like damp wood and old paper. The single bulb flickered overhead, casting long trembling shadows. Boxes were stacked against the walls. Some labeled. Some not. And in the center of the room, a locked metal cabinet. My breath caught. I remembered that cabinet. My husband bought it the same year everything started going wrong. He said it was for important documents. He never let me open it. I knelt in front of it, my knees protesting. On top sat a small wooden box. Familiar carving. A flower pattern I used to trace with my finger while waiting for answers my husband never gave. I opened it. Inside was a key. My son inhaled sharply behind me. That sound, that tiny broken sound, told me more than any confession ever could. I stood up slowly, turning the key over in my palm. "What's in here?" I asked. He didn't answer. I unlocked the cabinet. Inside were folders, photographs, letters, and one envelope with my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My husband's. The room felt like it tilted. I grabbed the cabinet door to steady myself. The envelope was thick, heavy with secrets. I opened it. The first line made my chest ache. If you're reading this, it means they finally decided you were in the way. I laughed then. A small broken laugh. Because of course he knew. He always knew. The letter spoke of money, of property, of decisions made without me, of promises broken quietly, legally, cruelly. And then, confession. Something that made my hands go numb. Something about my son. Something about that night 20 years ago. Something about blood that wasn't supposed to be spilled. I looked up at him. He was crying now. Not from guilt. From fear. The clock downstairs kept ticking. And for the first time I understood. They didn't push me out because I was useless. They pushed me out because I was dangerous. Because I was the only one who could still tell the truth. And now, I had the proof in my hands. My son dropped into the chair like his bones had suddenly forgotten how to hold him up. His hands covered his face, and for a moment I saw him the way he used to be, small, frightened, hiding from consequences he didn't understand yet. But then he spoke. You were never supposed to read that. I held the letter tighter. And you were never supposed to decide when I stopped mattering. The storage room felt smaller now. The shadows pressed closer, crawling up the walls like they were listening. I read the next page, my husband's words shaking in my hands. He wrote about signatures forged when I was sick. About accounts moved quietly. About the night the police came and left without knocking on our door. I remembered that night. The rain had been heavy. I'd stood at the window, candlelight flickering, watching red and blue reflections slide across the cracked floor. My husband told me it was a neighbor's trouble. He kissed my forehead and said, "Go back to bed." I trusted him. I trusted them all. I turned another page. If they ever send you away, he wrote, it means they think you forgot. It means they think age erased you. It didn't. It sharpened you. My throat burned. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered to the empty room, to a man gone years too long. My son stood up abruptly. Mom, please. You don't understand. I looked at him then, really looked. The man he became. The fear he carried like a second spine. Then explain it to me. He paced. His footsteps echoed, quick and uneven. It was an accident. That night. Nobody planned it. Accidents don't get buried in locked cabinets, I said. He flinched. I reached for the photographs. One showed the back of a car, trunk dented. Another showed a man's watch on wet asphalt. I recognized the watch. I bought it once years ago, as a thank you gift to someone who helped my husband with a business deal. My memory stirred, reluctant and sharp. You told me he moved away, I said. You said he took a job out west. My son's voice cracked. I was young. Dad said it was the only way to protect the family. Protect. That word again. I heard a floorboard creak behind us. My daughter-in-law stood in the doorway, arms folded, eyes cold. So you came back, she said. I told you she wouldn't just leave. She looked at the cabinet, at the papers in my hands. Her jaw tightened. We were going to take care of it. By erasing me? I asked. She stepped forward. By keeping you safe. You don't know what digging does. People start asking questions. I laughed softly. People always ask questions. It's the answers that scare them. She glanced at my son. We have to do something. Do something. Like I was a problem to solve. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my coat pocket, over my heart. You already did something, I said. You showed me exactly who you are. I turned to leave. My son blocked the door. You can't take that. Watch me. His hand grabbed my wrist. Not hard. Desperate. Mom, please. For a moment I saw the boy again. The one who cried when he scraped his knee. The one who believed I could fix anything with a kiss and a promise. I pulled my wrist free. Let me go. He didn't. That was when I heard it, the whisper again. Closer this time. Not my name. A word. Remember. The lights flickered. My daughter-in-law gasped. Did you hear that? I smiled. The house remembers. I stepped past them and walked down the hallway. Each step felt lighter. Stronger. The fear was still there, but it had changed shape. It was sharper now. Useful. In my room, I opened the loose board under the stairs, the place where I kept what little they never found. Inside was a small recorder. Old. Dusty. Forgotten. I pressed play. My husband's voice filled the space. Low. Careful. Confessing. Dates. Names. A plan to turn himself in that he never finished. A warning meant for me. My son stumbled into the room, eyes wide. You kept that. I keep everything, I said. That's what grandmothers do. The recording ended with my husband saying, if you're hearing this, forgive me. But don't protect them the way I did. Silence fell heavy and final. My daughter-in-law backed away. This ruins us. No, I said gently. Lies ruin people. Truth just finishes the job. I picked up my suitcase. As I walked toward the door, my son sank to the floor, sobbing. I didn't turn back. Not because I didn't love him, but because love doesn't mean disappearing anymore. Outside, the rain finally began to fall. Cold. Cleansing. I stepped into it, breathing deeply, my trembling voice steady now. They thought sending me away would end the story. They were wrong. Because I wasn't leaving to disappear. I was leaving to be heard. The rain soaked through my coat before I reached the bus stop. Each drop felt like a small awakening, sharp and honest. I stood there under the flickering streetlight, suitcase at my feet, listening to the water hit the pavement like 1,000 tiny confessions. I didn't know where I was going yet. I only knew where I wasn't staying. The bus arrived with a hiss, doors opening like a tired sigh. Inside, it smelled of damp clothes and old vinyl seats. I sat near the back, my hands folded over my coat pocket where the letter and the recorder rested. Proof has weight. You don't feel it until you carry it. As the bus pulled away, I watched my house disappear behind curtains of rain. One window glowed faintly, the storage room again. I wondered who stood there now. I wondered if the house whispered to them too. I got off 3 stops later, near the old motel by the highway. The sign flickered, missing 2 letters like it was ashamed of its own name. The clerk didn't ask questions. People who work places like that learn not to. My room was small, clean enough. 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 lamp that hummed when I turned it on. I locked the door and leaned against it, letting my body slide down until I was sitting on the floor. That's when the shaking came. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tremors moving through me like an aftershock. I pressed my forehead to my knees and breathed. In, out, the way I used to teach my son when nightmares woke him. I slept for 2 hours, maybe 3. I woke to a knock. Soft, careful. 3 taps. I froze. Another knock. Louder. Ma'am, a man's voice said. Front desk. I opened the door a crack. He stood there holding a small envelope. No logo. No return address. This was left for you, he said. Someone said it was important. My fingers tingled as I took it. Who left it? He shrugged. Didn't see their face. When I closed the door, I locked it again. Twice. I sat on the bed and stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single photograph. Me. Standing at the bus stop. Taken from across the street. My heart pounded, but my mind stayed clear. Fear had already done its worst to me tonight. This was something else. On the back of the photo, a message was written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. You remember more than they think. So do I. My mouth went dry. I pulled out the recorder and played it again, listening closely this time. Not just to my husband's words, but to the background. The faint clink of glass. A cough. Another voice, barely audible, asking a question he didn't answer. Someone else was there. I hadn't imagined it. I wrapped the recorder and letter in my scarf and hid them beneath the mattress. Then I sat by the window and watched the parking lot. Cars came and went. Headlights sliced through the dark. Every shadow felt intentional. Around dawn my phone buzzed. A message from my son. Please come home. We can talk. I didn't reply. Another message followed, quicker this time. They're asking questions. I closed my eyes. The word settled like a stone in my chest. I spent the morning walking. Rain had washed the streets clean, but the air still tasted heavy. I passed a cafe I used to visit with my husband years ago. The window was fogged, the chairs different, but the bell above the door rang the same way when I stepped inside. I ordered tea, sat by the window, and waited. After 10 minutes, a man sat across from me without asking. Gray hair, kind eyes, hands folded like he was used to listening. "You're braver than he was," he said. I didn't ask who he meant. "You left evidence," I said. He nodded. "He wanted to tell you. He ran out of time." The cafe felt suddenly too loud. Every spoon clinked like a warning. "They're scared," he continued. "Your son, his wife, they think silence still protects them." "And you?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "I've been carrying this for 20 years. I was hoping you'd remember." I leaned closer. "I remember everything now." He slid a small flash drive across the table. "Then it's time." I took it, my fingers steady. Outside, a siren wailed and faded into the distance. The man stood, placed a few bills on the table, and left without another word. I finished my tea slowly. By the time I stepped back into the street, the sun was rising. Pale, honest, unforgiving. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was a witness. And witnesses don't pack bags to disappear. They pack them to testify. I didn't go back to the motel. Once you understand you're being watched, you learn quickly which places make you easy to find. Rooms with numbers. Doors with records. Cameras that blink without blinking. Instead, I walked. The city wakes differently when you've slept through fear. The morning air was sharp, almost kind. I crossed streets before the lights changed, my reflection flickering in dark shop windows, an old woman with a suitcase and a purpose no one could see. I sat on a bench near the river and waited for the flash drive to feel real in my pocket. When I finally plugged it into a public computer at the library, my hands stopped shaking. Files opened one by one. Scanned documents. Audio recordings. Emails. Dates lined up like a spine. There was no doubt left. No room for misunderstanding. My husband's voice appeared again, clearer this time, confessing to what he helped cover, and naming who truly caused it. My son's name. I closed my eyes. A memory surfaced that I had buried so deep it had learned to breathe without me. A night argument. A car pulled into the driveway too fast. A man shouting. My son's face twisted in rage I didn't recognize yet. Then silence. I remembered scrubbing blood from the porch steps the next morning. He told me it was paint. I believed him. I always believed him. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail this time. My daughter-in-law's voice. Sharp. Controlled. Cracking underneath. "You're ruining our lives. Do you know what people will say? You're confused. You're old. No one will believe you." I smiled softly. She was wrong about one thing. People believe records. I copied everything to my own email. To cloud storage. To places I didn't know existed until today. The man from the cafe. His name appeared in one of the files. A witness who tried to speak once and was threatened into silence. He wasn't silent anymore. As I left the library, I noticed a black sedan idling across the street. The windows were tinted too dark. I didn't move when I did. I walked anyway. Down 2 blocks. Turned left. Then right. The car followed. Fear returned, but it didn't own me now. It followed me. I ducked into a church. Old stone. Heavy doors. Candles burning low. I sat in the back pew, my suitcase between my feet, and listened to the echo of my own breathing. A woman lit a candle beside me. She didn't look at me, but she whispered, "You're not alone." I wanted to hug her. Instead, I nodded. When I stepped back outside, the sedan was gone. By afternoon, the messages stopped. No calls. No texts. Silence again, but this time it felt like waiting. I went to a small legal clinic downtown. The young lawyer's eyes widened as she flipped through the files. "This is substantial," she said carefully. I nodded. "It needs to be heard." She hesitated. "Your family stopped being my shield the moment they used me as one," I said. She looked at me differently then. With respect. By evening, I sat alone in a borrowed room above the clinic. Safe for now. Quiet. The recorder lay on the table beside me, the flash drive next to it like a heartbeat. I played the final file. My husband's voice again. Tired. Regretful. If she ever listens to this, it means she chose truth over peace. "Forgive me for waiting so long. I whispered into the empty room. I forgive you. Outside, footsteps passed. Shadows moved beneath the door. Life continued, unaware of the small, dangerous thing happening upstairs. I opened my suitcase. At the bottom, beneath folded clothes and old habits, I found the photograph I almost packed earlier. The one I'd put back. It was of me. Young. Strong. Standing in front of the house the year we bought it. Smiling at a future that hadn't betrayed me yet. I folded it carefully and placed it in my coat pocket. Tomorrow I would speak. Tomorrow they would hear me. And once a grandmother decides to tell the truth, there is no locking that door again. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind wouldn't stop opening doors it had kept locked for decades. Every creak of the building sounded like a footstep from the past. Every passing car carried a memory. I lay on the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my own breathing, thinking about how many times I had chosen silence because it felt safer than truth. Silence is never safe. It just waits. Just before dawn I sat up. My chest felt tight but clear. Like a storm that had finally decided where to break. I made tea in the small kitchenette, my hand steady now. That surprised me. Fear had burned itself out. What remained was resolve. At 6:30 my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Carter, a man said. Calm. Professional. This is Detective Harris. We need to speak with you. I closed my eyes. So this was it. Yes, I said. I've been waiting. There was a pause. Then, we've received materials. Audio. Documents. They involve your family. My son, I corrected gently. Another pause. Longer this time. Yes. We agreed to meet in a public building downtown. He said it was for my safety. I believed him, but I trusted my instincts more. Before leaving, I sent copies of everything to 2 journalists whose names appeared on the flash drive. If anything happened to me, the story would still breathe. That's the thing about truth. Once released, it refuses to die. The city building smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Detective Harris met me in a small interview room with a window and a recorder on the table. He looked tired. Haunted even. He pressed record. Please tell us what you know. So I did. I told him about the letter, the cabinet, the photographs, the night of rain and lies. My voice trembled at first, but then it steadied like it remembered what it was meant to do. When I finished, the room was quiet except for the hum of the recorder. Why now? He asked softly. I looked at my hands. Because they tried to erase me. And because I finally understood that protecting them was hurting everyone else. Outside the room I heard raised voices. Urgent footsteps. A door slammed. Detective Harris stood. Please wait here. I already knew who had arrived. My son burst into the room 10 seconds later. His face was pale. His eyes red. He looked at me like I was a stranger wearing his mother's skin. How could you do this? He whispered fiercely. I met his gaze. How could you ask me not to? He fell into the chair across from me, burying his face in his hands. You don't understand what this will do. I understand exactly what it will do, I said. It will stop you from doing it again. He looked up sharply. Again. The word hung between us like a blade. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The officers led him away shortly after. He didn't look back. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe it was cowardice. I don't know anymore. Hours later, when I stepped back outside, the sky was wide and blue in a way that felt unfamiliar. Like the world had been scrubbed clean and didn't know me yet. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Local investigation reopened after new evidence emerges. I sat on the courthouse steps and laughed quietly. A sound I hadn't made in years. They tried to send me away. Instead, they gave me my voice back. And this story, it isn't finished yet. The cameras arrived before sunset. I didn't invite them. Truth has a way of calling for witnesses all by itself. I stood across the street from the courthouse, watching reporters cluster like birds on a wire. Microphones. Notebooks. Questions already forming in their eyes. My hands tightened around the strap of my worn handbag. Inside it, nothing dramatic. Just tissues, lip balm, and the quiet weight of everything I'd survived. A young woman approached me slowly. Mrs. Carter? Her voice was gentle, careful, like she knew she was stepping into something fragile. Yes, I said. Do you want to say anything? I looked past her, at the building where I had spent the afternoon pulling decades of silence out of my chest. I thought of the night my son was born. The first time he said, "Mama," the way I once believed love could fix anything. I want to say, I began, my voice trembling but clear, that age does not erase memory. It sharpens it. And silence doesn't mean consent. The cameras leaned closer. I was told I was no longer needed, I continued. But I was needed enough to hide behind. Needed enough to protect lies. I won't do that anymore. They didn't interrupt. That surprised me. I turned and walked away before they could ask more. Some truths need space after they're spoken. That night, I stayed at a women's shelter. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I wanted to be somewhere that understood starting over. The room was simple, clean, safe. The bed didn't know my past, and that felt like mercy. I lay awake listening to other women breathe, cry softly, turn in their sleep. Each sound was a reminder. I wasn't alone in this world the way I once thought. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "He's blaming you." I stared at the screen. Then another message followed. "He says you wanted this." I placed the phone face down and closed my eyes. People always say that when truth ruins their comfort. The next morning, Detective Harris called. His voice sounded heavier than before. "Your daughter-in-law has been questioned," he said. "She's cooperating now." Of course she was. "They're saying you misunderstood," he added carefully. "That grief affected your memory." I smiled sadly. Grief didn't make me forget. It made me remember. There was silence on the line. Then, "We have enough, Mrs. Carter. Even without you." "But you have me," I said. "And I'm not going anywhere." After the call, I took a shower and let the hot water run until my hands stopped shaking. I studied my face in the mirror. The lines. The silver hair. The eyes that had seen too much and survived it. I whispered to my reflection, "You did good." Later that afternoon, a volunteer brought me tea and a folded newspaper. My name was there. Not big, not bold, but real. "Grandmother's testimony reopens cold case." I traced the headline with my finger. Grandma. Not invisible. Not useless. Just present. As evening fell, I stepped outside. The air smelled like rain again. Familiar now. Friendly. I sat on the shelter's front steps, watching the streetlights come on one by one. A woman sat beside me. Younger. Bruised in ways I recognized. "Are you scared?" she asked. I thought about it. About the future. About loneliness. About blood and truth and the long road ahead. "Yes," I said honestly. "But I'm not silent anymore." She nodded like that answer meant something. Across town, my son sat somewhere I couldn't see. Maybe alone. Maybe angry. Maybe finally understanding the weight of what he'd done. I didn't hate him. That surprised me too. Hate takes energy I no longer have. What I have now is something stronger. Clarity. And as the night settled around me, I realized something quietly, something powerful. They took my house. They took my comfort. They took my role. But they couldn't take my truth. And tomorrow would ask them to face it. Morning came softly, like it didn't want to startle me. I woke before the alarm, before the shelter stirred, before the city remembered it had a story to consume. For a moment, I lay there listening to my own breath, steady and real. 72 years old, still here, still standing, still speaking. I packed my bag again, but this time not in silence. The courthouse steps were crowded when I arrived. Cameras, voices, movement. I felt small walking through it all, but not weak. Detective Harris met me at the door and nodded once. Respect. That was new. Inside, the room was colder than I expected. Hard benches. High ceilings. Echoes that didn't care who you were. I took my seat and folded my hands, feeling the recorder's weight in my coat pocket, even though I wouldn't need it anymore. The truth had already learned how to walk on its own. They brought my son in last. He looked older. Smaller. Like the lies had finally finished feeding on him. When his eyes found mine, something flickered there. Anger, fear, regret. Maybe all three. I didn't look away. They spoke of evidence. of timelines, of witnesses who had waited as long as I had. The man from the cafe testified. The lawyer. The documents spoke without trembling. The recordings played, my husband's voice filling the room like a ghost who had waited patiently to be heard. When it was my turn, I stood. My knees ached. My voice shook. But I spoke anyway. I was told I was confused, I said. That grief and age had softened my mind. But memory doesn't rot. It ripens. And what I remembered clearly. I told them about the night of rain, the cabinet, the letter, the way love had been used like a lock on my mouth. I told them about being packed away, labeled unnecessary, pushed toward the door like something broken. I was not sent away because I was weak, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I was sent away because I knew too much. The room was silent when I finished. Even my son didn't speak. The decision didn't come that day. Those things take time. But when they led him away again, this time in cuffs, something inside me loosened. Not joy. Not revenge. Release. Outside, the sun was bright and honest. Reporters rushed forward, questions tumbling over one another. I raised my hand gently. I've said enough, I told them. Now listen to each other. I walked away before they could ask more. Days passed. Then weeks. The house was sold. The accounts frozen. The story grew roots and branches I couldn't control anymore. People wrote to me, women, men, children of silence, telling me my voice unlocked theirs. I read every message slowly, carefully, like each one mattered. Because they did. One afternoon, I returned to the old neighborhood. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Empty now. Quiet. The cracked floor still visible through the front window. The storage room light was off for good. I didn't go inside. I stood on the sidewalk and whispered goodbye, not to the house but to the woman I was when I lived there. The one who thought love meant enduring anything. Then I turned away. That evening I sat in a small apartment that was finally mine. Second-hand furniture. Warm light. No whispers. On the wall hung one photograph. The one of me, young and smiling in front of the house years ago. I looked at it and smiled back. My phone buzzed once. A message from my son's number. The first in weeks. I'm sorry. That was all. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. I know. And I meant it. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. As night fell, I lit a candle and sat by the window. The city hummed below me. Alive. Unafraid. I placed my hands in my lap and spoke softly the way I am speaking to you now. If you are listening, if you feel forgotten, if someone has packed your worth into a suitcase and told you to leave, don't. Because being needed is not the same as being loved. And silence is not peace. I packed my bags that day because they thought I was finished. But what they didn't understand, what they never saw, was that grandmothers don't disappear. We remember. We endure. And when we finally speak, the truth comes with us.